Good morning. Thank you very much for coming. Really do appreciate it. We have the pleasure today of Shelby Stephenson, the North Carolina Poet Laureate. Shelby is the current Poet Laureate of North Carolina and lives actually on a small farm where he was born near Benson, North Carolina. And he says, most of my poems come out of that background where memory and imagination play on one another. He was educated at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, University of Pittsburgh, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He is Professor Emeritus at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke, and served as editor of the international literary journal Pembroke Magazine from 1979 until his retirement in 2010. His awards include the Zoe Kincaid Brockman Memorial Award, the North Carolina Network Chapbook Prize, Bright Hill Press Chapbook Award, and the Brockman Campbell Poetry Prize. He has published a poetic documentary, Plank House, plus 10 chapbooks, most recently, Steal Away. Family Matters, Homage to July, the Slave Girl, won the 2008 Bell Day Poetry Prize and the 2009 Oscar Arnold Young Award. The state of North Carolina presented Shelby with the 2001 North Carolina Award in Literature, and in 2014 he was inducted into the North Carolina Literary Hall of Fame. Please welcome my former college instructor, professor, and North Carolina Poet Laureate, Dr. Shelby Stephenson.
Thank you, Lisa. It's wonderful to be here and wonderful to see Lisa and all of you. And you're going to sit back there in the dark? That's okay. You can come up if you wish. I always did that too, you know. I don't know why we do that. We need some. Okay, this is a little starter here. You can fill in the blank. I love Theodore Roethke's poems. He's from Saginaw, Michigan. Wonderful lyric poet. Sings. Anyway, he has a book of poems called Yes, Says the Lamb, a children's book, and this is one I especially like since you're all children. The Lizard. The time to tickle a lizard is before or right after a blizzard. You're good. Now the place to begin is just under his. Did you hear? Chin. And here's more advice. Don't poke more than twice at an intimate place like his gizzard. Did you get it? Oh, gosh. Oh, me. Maybe I should try to sing before I read. You think we should? I'll just do one song just to see if I can. I came to poems probably through the hymns of the Primitive Baptist Church I went to, okay, when I was growing up. I've been to several colleges and universities, though when I was growing up, there were no books in the house. We didn't have books. We had 35 dogs. My father did. He had one before my time named Slobbermouth. He said he could outrun the Word of God with the Bible tied to his tail. So I grew up hearing all these stories. So we had the Sears Roebuck catalog and the Bible, and I fell in love with books and words, especially in my 20s. I ended up as an English major. One thing I didn't do, I brought the guitar. This is a very light guitar. That's why I brought it. Is go to Nashville after high school, and I still wonder why I didn't. I was a hillbilly singer before hillbilly became a kind of word that had some kind of slinking embarrassment to it. But hillbilly probably originated. Now we need to Google that, Sue. Where are you? That's a little couplet. Hillbilly. There's a fiddle tune, Billy in the Low Ground. And I think it must have to do in the old days with the... Do you know the word swain? Old English word. And now it's associated with the Beverly Hillbillies and one who, the kind of popularity of redneckdom. Anyway, I grew up on Hank Williams Sr. songs, and any of you heard Hank the Three? Hank Three? Looks a lot like his granddad, and Hank Jr. also has. He and I don't know the mother of these children. Hillary and Holly and Hank the Three are Hank Jr.'s. And Hank Jr. was 3 when his dad died. His death certificate is dated January 1, 1953. He was 29. And this is something to ponder if you think of music and all the artists. I've got to sing and read. Why am I telling you this? Who lived fast and loved hard and died young. I'm working on, and actually I have 300 pages on the relationship between business and art. What do you do when something you love becomes a business? Whether it's singing or painting, Judy, or writing, or once you become a star, once the public, you can, Janis Joplin, you can name them. Dylan Thomas lived to be 39. What if he hadn't punished the whiskey too much? Anyway, that's something. Hank, his birthday is September 17. He was born 1923, so you can subtract the year from 2015. He wouldn't be all that old. Today, people live forever. Anyway, this is the first song Hank had a hit of, and he sang it on the Grand Ole Opry in 1949, I believe, June 1949. It's called The Lovesick Blues. And I'm going to see if I can get through a verse of that, and then read to you. But he went on, to write some beautiful, beautiful songs. Cold, Cold Heart, I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry is my favorite Hank. And I Can't Help It, You Win Again, Kalijah, on and on and on. I got a feeling, woo! I got a feeling called the blues, oh Lord, since my baby said goodbye. Any musicians in this audience? Go get your steel or your fiddle or your bones or spoons. Do you know Hank's songs? 3-chord songs? Okay. I don't know what I'll do. I've lost my heart, it seems. I've grown so used to you somehow. I'm nobody's sugar daddy now, but I'm lonesome. I got the lovesick blues. Well, I'm in love with a beautiful gal. That's what's the matter with me. I'm in love with a beautiful gal. She don't care about me. I've tried and I've tried to keep her satisfied. She just wouldn't stay. So now that she is leaving, this is all I can say. I got a feeling called the blues. oh, Lord, since my baby said goodbye. How is this lavalier microphone doing? I feel like I'm swallowing this thing, but that's pretty good. The guy who set this up, it's not whistling or anything. I've lost my heart, it seems. I've grown so used to you somehow. I'm nobody's sugar daddy now, but I'm lonesome. I got the lovesick blues. Hey, I can tell you this. I did going around for the state, and I guess I'm doing this for the state. State of what? Burnsville. Has anyone ever been to Burnsville? You have. Why didn't you stay?
They closed the sidewalks were closed at like 7 o'clock.
Oh, well, the atmosphere and isn't it, and the community feel. People go there and they end up, I know, and they, what is it called? Blow glass blowers, and they're potters, and they stay there. And I understand why. I stayed, I did the Carolina Mountains Literary Festival recently, and stayed in the house of Dean and Sandra Gates. Dean's had a construction business, and I said, well, why didn't you? He's also a beautiful musician, singer, gospel music and so on. I said, why didn't you do that? And we got involved in talking about this. He's from west of Kingsport, Tennessee, and he said, we talked about this. And Sandra Gates is a wonderful painter, paintings everywhere around. And so finally I said, Dean, why didn't you go to Nashville? What do you think would have happened? I wonder, out of high school, why I didn't, listening to Farron Young and Kitty Wells and the wonderful music I grew up on, the old string music. And he said, I can tell you, Shelby, if I had gone, I would be dead. I would be drunk and dead. And he said, and you probably would be too. And I thought of George Jones, who died several times before he finally did. Hank was dead at 29, and Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and you go on and on. Jerry Lee Lewis is still living. David Manconi, who writes about music for the News and Observer, came to the house and we talked and so on. He just has a book out, by the way, on Ray Benson, Asleep at the Wheel. This Jewish kid from Philadelphia heads Asleep at the Wheel. Asleep at the Wheel? Anybody? Okay, thanks. And I just finished Rick Bragg's biography of Jerry Lee Lewis, came out recently. And I said, David, Elvis is gone, and Chuck Berry's still doing it, and Little Richard. Cash is gone, those Memphis guys. Who wrote Blue Suede Shoes? His name escapes me, but he's gone. I said, why is Jerry Lee Lewis still living? He said, Jerry Lee's too mean to die. Oh boy, this is my favorite song, and then I won't sing anymore. I'll read to you. This is a poem, probably, don't you think? If you know it, sing with me. Hear that lonesome whippoorwill. He sounds too blue to fly. That midnight train is whining low. I'm so lonesome I could cry. Did you ever hear a robin weep? Did you ever hear a robin weep when leaves begin to die? Come on. When leaves begin to die, that means he's lost the will to live. That means he's lost the will to live. I'm so lonesome I could cry. I've never seen a night so long when time keeps crawling by. The moon just went behind a cloud to hide its face and cry. Oh, I'll do a little bit to wake us up of a song I learned. It's Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. I've been to Texas once. I love that music. By the way, Asleep at the Wheel, they have a tribute album to Bob Wills, and it's this song. I learned it because of the picture of the cotton fields. I grew up, but we didn't have much cotton, and most I ever picked was 88 pounds in one day. My mother, by the way, picked cotton. She picked 350 pounds in one day. And I said, Mama, how did you do that? And she says, I got out early when the dew was on the bolls. Anybody ever picked cotton? I need to come here sometime and have all of you come up here and tell me what you do. What's funny about that? I was thinking, how do I say this? If you'll be in the same place sometime. You'll say, gosh, do you remember? And nobody will even grin. Anyway, this is the song. Yeah, my window faces the south. I'm almost halfway to heaven. Snow is falling, still I can see those fields of cotton smiling back at me. My window faces the south. Though I'm far from the Swanee, I'm never frowning or down in the mouth. My window faces the south. My window faces the south. I'm almost halfway to heaven. Snow is falling, still I can see those fields of cotton smiling back at me. Yeah, my window faces the south. Though I'm far from the Swanee, I'm never frowning or down in the mouth. My window faces the south. My window faces the south. I don't get paid much. God, anybody remember little Jimmy Dickens? He lived to be, he sang, May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose, the Shel Silverstein song. May an elephant caress you with his toes. May your mother get runners in her hose. May the bird of paradise fly up your nose. Anyway, he was so funny. He said it was hard, not easy to be short. He woke up one morning and pulled his socks up and just about choked himself. He said, he said he did a concert, and you know the Nashville girls and boys wear these very flashy clothes, and he wore his pink suit, is made by Nudie, okay, and this woman turned to the man beside her and said, John, there goes a walking Pepto-Bismol bottle. You're supposed to laugh. Okay. Has anyone ever worked in tobacco here? You don't have to. Oh, gosh. Yeah, okay. That's another question I think we could deal with, and I'm not concerned about it, but if you write about something, say pack houses or tobacco worms or cotton fields, or, gosh, skyscrapers, Walt Whitman or Emily Dickinson's poems and so on, if you don't know the subject matter, perhaps you can appreciate the music. I'll read this one. Has anyone ever worked in a pack house and bundled tobacco? It's all changed now. You have, Judy. Gosh. No, I'm going to change my mind and be serious. I'll read you, as an intro, my sister, in her hand, I saw the citation for the sale of a slave girl in 1851 that my sisters and my great-great-grandfather sold for $413.25. I wrote a couple of sonnets for her just to get the information out. Sonnets for July the slave girl. She may be lying in the graveyard across the road from where I live, by the way. There's 17 slave graves there. And I waited. It was a while before I thought I could write about that, especially put it in what may be poems rather than whatever prose is prose. Those categories don't work. And this is the Slave Girl book. I saw a copy of the bill of sale, and that's all I saw. And then a friend who is a genealogist, Mark Valsame, probably Googled. Sue, are you here? Anyway, the cohabitation records went to the Heritage Center, which you can do in the county where you were born and find out lots of things. And before you grow old, you should leave and make things up. But it's quite something to do that, find out about yourself and your family. Well, in my sister's hand, I saw the citation, so I went to Archives and History in Raleigh, and I saw it on a microfilm. My hand was trembling as I tried to put it on the sprocket or whatever it was. And the guy there said, you know, you can see this at the courthouse. And I said, gosh, I didn't know that. So I went to the Johnston County Courthouse in Smithfield, my county. That's the county seat of Johnston. And I saw the bill of sale, a copy of the bill of sale. And I signed a book for Mark Valsame, who works in some department of the governor's office. He's a genealogist. And I emailed him, or I said to him, I said, Mark, what happened to July? So about a week I got back an email, and he said she lived to be, he checked the cohabitation records, she lived to be about 33 years old. She died about 1873. She started having babies when she was 12. She was listed as house servant and by the clerk of court. These little poems here, anyway, I just told you basically what I put in these two little poems, Sonnets for July the Slave Girl. I saw the deed of sale. The words I hear convey a certain Negro girl a slave. My writing stopped for family to bear more. Named July, about 10 years old. Brave was the word that came to me. Could you know how you would stand with buyer Seth Woodall if seller, my Pap George, you'd ever bow again for and find time to throw the ball? Our history's serious business. If you see the print and the document, consideration writ in legalese, $413.25. What can I say? I'm the great-great-grandson. These words, my arms, to have and hold the same. Now I'll read you the first entry in in Family Matters, Homage to July the Slave Girl. I was trying to write about my family, especially the ones who came before me. So I was doing research, which can be fun if you don't overdo it and not get to your writing. You've got to get to your writing. That's the main thing. If you check records, if you check your genealogy, for example, some of you have done that, right? You fall into a hole, into a lot of myths or moths or whatever. I got back to 1651. Got the Stephensons back. You know people, and I do too, who go back to the old countries and where they were born and so on. This is, so anyway, after I saw the reference to July the Slave Girl in my sister's handwriting, I managed to write about it, about her. Your name is July. Your name is July. There is no record I know about beyond the account of your sale. Did you know your place, and my great-great-granddad's too? Rummaging around the home place, pronouncing your name, July. I hear my father. This land will be yours someday. What graveyard of bones, mounds, and stones the I owned. You there. These are some of Pap George's slaves. Jart, Venus, Sylvie, Clay. April's wildflowers run at your feet. Did winters fill your shoes with snow? Pap George did live here. The old wash house still stands. I kicked the dust out of these fields. Great-great-grandpap George's anvil fits right between your shoulder blades. The money used to buy and sell you presses into my heart. I remember never eating with them. They lived on our place. My father's boyhood home, his father's home place. They slept in the same rooms he grew up in. So when they came to our shanty, my mother would fix some plates to take to the porch. We would talk through the screen. They would eat their peas and fatback, and my mother took pride in knowing they liked her food. Chattel rattle, down chute to market, limbs swinging, nostrils flaring blood. May streams and woods your vestments be, your creeks filled with fish, fields score with mercy, tenant shanties where the landscape, the graveyard moves the rip of the whip. Monuments unheard still, field rocks grow moss and breathing, grieving. Memory comes closer to mercy, uncompromising like medicine we take and wait. Your warm color line never dies. Fingers wave from galleys, ships pushing through hell to bring us here. On Steal Away, by the way, there's a photograph of the old house I was born in, the plank house. I was talking with Lisa coming in about childhood. She spent her first 7 years in New Hampshire. Childhood is maybe everything, and it's something I cannot ever let go or get over. I'm going to read a little bit from Fiddle-de-dee, 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 the fly has married the bumblebee. Mother Goose. And I love this little quote from the Song of Solomon. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Paragraph from the prologue saying, I need an image to make the world. I went back home and held my eyes on the hill, and it said, you need a word deeper than I. So I took the old fence rails the lizards ran, and my family's tongue came out of the mouth of Buzzard's branch, the sound of that one story everywhere, in the marshes and the fields and low grounds. And I said, where is the word that holds all I'm trying to say? And the cows lowed through their cuds over and over. It is nothing but a song. The long journey home. Out of an incremental memory, I sing the outgoing redness of childhood, never forming in one visible image, yet definite as the hayfield offering its ritual, real in an unimaginary way, for getting up hay never interested me. The dust in my lungs, my sweaty shirt itching. I entered the world itching, confused as I still am. Figuring in the lower swamp a deeper meaning with my companions, my probings lost in the taunts I'd let bounce like sticks thrown on brick. Hay red on the head, runt, freckles, cross eyes, four eyes, smoke, chub. And as I grew, I said yes and yes again, until all the bullies in me at Cleveland School melted in a vat with hogs roiling in chains on Killing Day, a ritual, discovering the self I can never touch. That dark, evil light that glows in eggs mornings when the sun is right and the chicken is pipping. The egg hatched, and the children's bones, chicken's bones, raised up into one dazzling world, from the hopping flea wanting a place to stop, to the remaining apple blossoms scattering like crumbs from God's table. I was born June 14th, 1938, Flag Day, in the sign of the Gemini, on the wheel of changing change, in a pure accident. One identity coming out of the other as a river of youth runs in a river of death. Nature's mask created out of the self. One protean being turning me into a giant when I'd read about Jack and his cow, and into a man when I'd see the hulk of a man under the coat in the contest between the sun and the wind, the sun winning. And I'd feel the helpless helper in myself, integrated in the perfect motion, its tendencies never to be finished in and out of itself. A June child embodies the opposites, confounding us always to see the grave and humorous on the threshold of art about to form out of the counterpoise, to leave a deposit with earning power. Look hard in the glory of your means. Let go the body. The cardinal flowers stretch across the landscape, handsome in their high keys. There goes a plank house into a hedge. We come from a desert of innumerable dances, made in pain and pleasure, arriving forever. America's promise, huckleberry laid back every spring when the little green corn is sighted. What broken clods to bounce in the dirt. The literature of the world is the people. Whitman, where are you? Our faculties run out into the unknown. Results are beginning, continuously extending the plain chance to hold a seat here, hardy as a foot soldier. An articulate voice lowers to let the mind down, so the undergarments might hear humanity in the bosom, stumbling back to breathe independently. Transitory, we bequeath to thee, O death, this victorious song thou breaks, the word of the singer, his parentage and home, the wood in the flames, a quiet crackle of no hurry going up and out, moving the dust that settles the ashes, a tune, a far-away injury of happiness, a bliss that is hard to empty. Time and space affirm the rhythm, the dimensions of across and around. Wrap a tent around the music and steal away. Images edge the feelings like heels grinding lightly on a board of closest imaginative stances, delighting the reapers in the wheat, the keepers in the creek. The word is another form of dancing. The body moves on the surface just over truth. We live amid the skin. The true art of experience is practiced by the skipper bugs. They skate so well. I clap my hands and the water scoots awake, beating with a new beauty, and the line which begins behind is brought forward. I look back one more time to draw a radiance in language, a radical system, formless and grammatically mountainous and divine, mortal as the fertilizing rain, a lingering space that gives the celebration a morning, noon and night swallowed up by the dallying and playing world, holding the ancient beard in an avenging dance, a cosmos for jollity. High in the pocket of a farmhouse, I am alone, a laughing moon, brightening like an orange on ice. Thank you. Do you have something you want to say? You obviously see I don't really have anything to say, you know. I guess we don't have to have a reason to write, but that's why we do it. Questions or anything? Yes, sir. Oh, well.
When did you first realize that you were inspired to want to write poetry? Like, has it always been something you've done, or did one day you just have a revelation and started writing?
No. No, I didn't. I never. Whatever poetry is, it chose me. I remember, well, I got through high school. I always did well in anything I enjoyed. I made the honor roll until I got to the 8th grade, and then puberty and poverty did its number. But to answer your question, I started even then doodling in a diary, you know, and I had this feeling that I wanted to say something that I couldn't say. And I grew up, as you probably are growing up too. If you grew up in this country, this is not a criticism, or wherever you grow up. There's a bias maybe against the arts, maybe, hey, I ended up as an English major. And I can still hear now people say, you can say it with me, you gonna major in English? What you gonna do with when you get out? You know, you gotta get a job, boom, 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 you know, make some money. Maybe have a house in Tennessee or in the mountains or in Malibu, you know? I mean, so what happened to me was I ended up as an English major. This is part of my story. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to law school, 2.5 years and 13 hours short of an LLB. See, I'm putting this in a little tiny thing, and your story's here somewhere too. The law and I failed each other. I got an F in income tax. I got a D in future interest. And I was never one to say, okay, I'll do this to get through. I had to see it coming. That's more or less the way I have gotten this far. And then I see what to do, which is to say I really don't like to think. I know, teacher always said, put on your thinking cap. That's all right, but I'm so glad to be through school so I don't have to put on my thinking cap. Right? Ben Franklin said that somewhere. That's wonderful. I read his autobiography. I came to books with a vengeance when I came to books in my 20s. But, you know, as I say, I ended up as an English major and went to law school. And looking back, it didn't take me long to know that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Oh, I can figure out now, the only course in undergraduate school I failed was, guess. What?
Creative writing.
No, I never had a class in creative writing. Algebra. Okay? And I went to summer school, now at Carolina, and got a B in trigonometry. And I memorized. I could remember, you know? And then I forgot it immediately. As I forgot Spanish, I almost majored in at Chapel Hill. I love the language. See, being an accurate, true American, unless you go somewhere where you're going to use the language. Anyway, but to come back to your question, so the law and I failed each other. And I was rooming with Dick Olive from Summit, New Jersey, and he said, Shelby, this was in March of 1963, he said, I can get you a date with Susie Winter, who went to high school with me. He married a girl who went to women's college, and she was teaching in Falls Church, Virginia. So Dick and I left Chapel Hill. We went to Martha Mills, his apartment, and then we went to, I think it was Alexandria, Virginia, yes, to meet my date, Susie. And we went to the Purple Cow in Washington, D.C. That was the first time I ever sat on the floor and crossed my, what do they call? My knees and legs, and ate with chopsticks. I crossed them too. But anyway, I got into the door to Susie's house about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm telling this as straight as I can. Her father was at the door. He said, I understand you need a job. And I'm trying to answer your question. And he said, I said, yeah. And so he made an appointment with Mr. George Klug, who was the head of the right-of-way department for American Telephone and Telegraph Long Lines, the headquarters then, White Plains, New York. So I got to tell you this little story, little slight digression. I'd never been on an airplane, so I went to see my friend Jerry Johnson, who lived, as we say, across the creek, across Middle Creek, and I said, Jerry, I don't want to be embarrassed, plus I want to know. I'm going, by the way, to California in early November. Now everything has changed, you know. It's all like the boarding passes, it's all electronic. So I feel in the same situation I was in then. And I said, Jerry, what do I do? And he said, well, he told me what to do. I got to White Plains, New York, managed to get to the Roger Smith Hotel and threw up. We flew into LaGuardia. And anyway, Mr. Klug said, come and, come for an interview. And I said, well, gosh, so I interviewed with him, and he offered me a job, and I started, and I worked for 18 months, to answer your question, and I got so bored. I had a company car, I was making good money. I asked myself one day if I wanted my employer's job. The answer was no. I worked 7 states, by the way, buying land and easements, buying land for microwave towers and easements underground for underground cables. And so I didn't want my employer's job. And the second question is, are you going to work and try to get back into law school and do those 13 hours somewhere? Because I was traveling around, so I would go into law schools around. And the answer was no. And so I had an Austin Healey Sprite, the last of the Bug Eyes, if you like little cars. I have a Miata now. They don't make those cars anymore. It's the baby car of the Austin Healey 3000. And so I let my mother have it, and she pulled weeds, wild onions out of the yard with it, she said, and bought groceries. And I bought $52 worth of books. I signed up for a special semester of 4 English classes, no American Lit, at the University of Pittsburgh, where I had all around had done some work. And I knew the first night, I rented a room in Swissvale, the Regent Square section of Swissvale, which is near Pittsburgh, and I knew that I would stay. And I started the diary again. I fell in love with books. And because my life, I was 26 years old, I just turned 26. I thought, I can't do this all my life. How awful to wake up when you're 30 or 40 or whenever and be bored. So I did that special semester, went to graduate school in English at Pitt. I fell in love with Faulkner's writings and got an assistantship or teaching assistantship at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and my wife and I went up there, and we lived there from 68 to 74. I started sending poems out in the spring, in the winter of 1972, and I placed a poem called Whales Are Hard to See in the Davidson Miscellany. I fell in love with little magazines, literary magazines. Do you have some here? Anyway, the University of Wisconsin has the largest collection in the world. Now they're in middle schools and high schools and so on. You probably have one here. And that's how it all got started. And how did I do it? And to come to your point, though, when I really started and felt that I could do it is when I accepted that I could never change my past, that I had a childhood on a dirt farm. I saw my first movie when I was 14 years old. I grew up on this little farm at the end of this plantation that was gone. That's why the slaves are across the road, right? Our history. And My father had 35 foxhounds, and I remember their names. He named them for movie stars of the 1950s, and I've written about them. I have a book coming out, by the way, by Press 53 in the spring. Look for it, right here in Winston-Salem. It's called Elegies for Small Game. I grew up hunting the possum, the squirrel, ate possum. I have 2 little books on the possum, wanted to give back, our only native marsupial. So in other words, I just gave myself to my culture, basically, and that's where my writing comes from. It doesn't have to come from that, but you can do that. Don't be afraid of doing that, of writing out of your childhood. And the second part is, words, you can do things with words. You make things up. And so that's basically my story. And I never thought I would, as I said to Lisa earlier, that I would teach. I backed into it. I fell in love with teaching. It seems like a dream. I never remember that I didn't enjoy it. Really. For 32 years for the state, and before that, 4 years at Campbell. It was like heaven. I was no longer doing something that I didn't enjoy. I took too long to respond, but I told about a story and a half. But do you understand?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we got to go, but is there I'll promise to be quick if you'll just ask me one more, make me feel good. Yes. Okay, go ahead. No, I sang to her. Yeah, we'd write a line, fly me to the moon and let me, and all those songs are gone. And I have written to her. If we had the time before the rescue would come for us, I have written lots of poems to her. And in writing about her, I hope that the writing takes on something bigger than itself. That's the whole thing. Where are you from? What? Yadkin. What's the county seat? Yadkin. What? Yadkinville. Okay. All right. Yeah. Have you written us anything about Yadkin growing up there? Yadkin. Wonder what that word means. Y-A-D? K-I-N. Backwards, it's N-I-K. Hey, here's a one-liner to leave you with. It's by A.R. Ammons. You ready? Coward. Ready? This poem is Coward. Bravery runs in my family. By the way, I got to tell you this. The Oxford Book of Verse is out. It's about that thick. It's been out a few years. I just was down in Whiteville, and Archie Ammons' sister, Vida, was there and went to the reading and stuff. And she said, Shelby, have you seen the Oxford book? That Archie has lots of poems in it. And I counted them. There were 13. Easter Morning, which is a beautiful poem. And he has a book called The Very Brief Poems of A.R. Ammons. And this is the poem that was in there. Ready? Our marriage. It's called Our Marriage. One failure on top of another. And here's another one. Cold Room. R-H-E-U-M. Got it? I could write this on the board. You can't tell what's not from what's not. I wish I'd thought about it. I mean, he has fun, but a wonderful, wonderful poet. Paid to get his first book published and won 2 National Book Awards and so on. But his first book came out about 1954 or 5. Well, I've got to quit so you can, God, the bell has rung several times. Do we still have more time?
We actually don't have more time.
Yeah, she has a question. What?
Let me get it on.
Basically, it all started with you being a storyteller.
Yeah, I'm basically a storyteller.
He's a storyteller.
Yeah, but yeah, more than that. My bias is the lyric. Hey, I'll end you with a story, and you can leave as you wish. But I can hear my father say, or if he got it from somewhere, said Joe McParish moved from the country to Durham, and he would come back home just to take a dump in the cornfield, just to hear it hit the ground, just to go back the next day and see if a dog hadn't eat it. Lexi Rideout was standing next to a tree, and he said, well, Joe Mac, I'll tell you one thing. It'll be there. Ain't no damn dog will touch it. You up there in Durham eating nothing but cocoa and hardtack. I bet you if you take it and shape it and put it in a rifle and shoot it, well, you'd kill a deer 3 miles away. Okay, I'm through. Okay, Lisa, thank you. Go write your poems and don't be afraid to tell everything plus.